Picture this. The year is 1962. The entire world is holding its breath, just teetering on a knife's edge. Soviet missiles in Cuba are aimed straight at the United States, and for 13 nail-biting days, humanity just waits. But, in the shadows of this nuclear standoff, another kind of war was being planned. A war fought not with bombs, but with information.
It's a pretty wild thought, isn't it? What if the single most defining technology of our time, the internet, had been born not in sunny California, but in Kyiv? Today we're going to pull back the curtain on a secret Soviet plan to build its very own internet, a project that, honestly, could have changed absolutely everything. And this is where the story just gets unbelievable. In the very same year that the world was staring down the barrel of a nuclear gun, a Soviet scientist named Viktor Glushkov came up with an answer. His solution wasn't a bigger bomb, no. It was a nationwide computer network, a kind of digital nervous system designed to bring perfect order to the chaotic Soviet state.
So in this explainer, we're going to dig into it all. How did this vision, born from a crisis, plan to create a nation's nervous system? What powerful forces waged a quiet war to stop it? And maybe, most importantly, what would our world even look like if this dream hadn't been put on hold? Let's dive in. Okay, so to really understand this incredible digital dream, we have to start with the absolute nightmare that inspired it.
And right at the heart of this story is one man, Viktor Glushkov. Now, Glushkov was a pioneer in a field called cybernetics, which is basically the science of how complex systems, whether it's a living thing or a giant machine, control themselves and communicate. He looked at the massive, inefficient Soviet planned economy and saw a system literally drowning in paperwork. And he had a plan not just to fix it, but to rocket it into the future.
So what was this grand plan? Well, it was so ambitious, so huge, that Glushkov didn't even call it a computer network. He called it the nation's new nervous system.
The project's official name was OGAS. And the goal? Whoa. The goal was to link every single factory, every farm, every planning office in the entire Soviet Union into one single real-time information network. The idea was it would track everything, from the number of screws being made in a factory in Minsk to the demand for bread in Vladivostok, and then use all that data to make the whole economy run with perfect machine-like precision.
And look, this wasn't just some vague idea scribbled on a napkin. Glushkov had a detailed blueprint all worked out. It was a three-tiered pyramid of information, a massive central computer, like a brain, in Moscow. That would be connected to 200 regional hubs, which would all be fed by 20,000 terminals on the ground, gathering data from every last corner of the empire. He truly saw OGAS as a biological system. It would sense problems instantly, send back commands immediately, and allow the state to react to economic changes in a matter of hours, not months or years. It was a vision of a perfectly rational, totally data-driven socialist utopia.
But to build this digital utopia, Glushkov first had to tear down an existing empire, the empire of paper. And that empire, well, it was about to strike back. The biggest threat to the Soviet internet wasn't from America. It came from right inside the system.
See, on one hand, Glushkov was promising efficiency, optimization, and transparency. But for the millions of Soviet bureaucrats and powerful ministry heads, transparency wasn't a feature. It was a mortal threat. Their power, their careers, their whole reason for being was wrapped up in controlling information, in their stamps, their signatures, their piles of paper. OGAS threatened to make every single one of them obsolete. And what do you think happens when you threaten the jobs of millions of powerful officials?
They found their weapon, the price tag. The project was estimated to cost a staggering 20 billion rubles. To put that in perspective, that's on the same scale as the Soviet nuclear program and space program combined. The stakes were just astronomical.
So, how did the ministries respond to this nation-changing proposal? They approved a paltry 5 million rubles. It wasn't just a budget cut, it was an insult. It was a clear signal they would rather see the whole country choke on red tape than give up one single ounce of their power. They basically starved the project of oxygen before it could even take its first breath.
And that leads us, well, pretty inevitably, to the project's tragic end. It was a dream deferred, ironically defeated by the very paperwork it was designed to replace.
It wasn't one single thing that killed OGAS. It was more like a war of 1,000 paper cuts. Powerful ministries fought tooth and nail over who would control this new river of data. The massive cost was used as a constant excuse to delay. And instead of building one unified network, the funds got diverted to lots of small, separate computer systems that kept each ministry in its own little information kingdom,
protecting their turf. So by the early 1980s, the dream was completely over. Glushkov himself passed away in 1982, and his grand vision was buried under a mountain of memos and political turf wars. The Soviet Union would then stumble into its final decade, its economy slowly suffocating from the exact inefficiency OGAS was meant to cure, totally unprepared for the digital age that was already dawning in the West.
But, the story doesn't really end there. The ghost of OGAS still haunts our own digital world. So for this last part, let's just explore the profound legacy of the internet that never was.
I mean, really think about that for a second. Our internet, which came from the US military's ARPANET, was designed from the ground up to be decentralized. The whole point was that it could survive a nuclear attack. The Soviet model, OGAS, was the absolute opposite, completely centralized, built from day one for top-down control. We're talking about two fundamentally different philosophies for connecting the world.
So, we're left with these huge, unanswerable questions. Could a fully built OGAS have made the Soviet economy so hyper-efficient that it never collapsed? Or would it have become the ultimate tool of state surveillance, a digital cage for 290 million people? Would our internet today be a kind of public utility instead of a giant shopping mall? Well, just never know for sure. But the story of OGAS is this crucial, chilling reminder. The technology we build is never neutral. It's always shaped by the values of the people who create it, for better or for worse.